Time, the most valuable asset that any single individual has on this planet. And what we do with it can vary greatly between any of us. Some people might use it to go to school and get a degree. Others might use it to put in overtime at work. And then there's me, who uses it to put an ungodly amount of hours into League of Legends.
You know what that means?
No, what?
It means you have no skills and you're a loser!
And let me tell you, if there's one thing that you shouldn't spend your time on, it's that game. But that's besides the point. A lot of people spend their free time playing video games, like I do. Some play multiplayer games, and others play single player games, like I've been doing more of recently. And one of my favorite genres of single player titles are open world games, because I love being able to explore the vast worlds and unique lands that these virtual settings have to offer. It's like discovering a whole entirely brand new planet that has its own civilizations, endemic life, and history. I just love uncovering the esoteric lore and hidden secrets that the developers have painstakingly handcrafted into their games. Every time I play an open world game, I almost always try to fully immerse myself into the setting by exploring every nook and cranny of it to make sure that I never miss anything cool. I always took every side quest and sought out every optional area because I didn't want to miss any special side content that the devs may have included. I wanted to fully experience the content that the devs intended for me to. And I mean, I did pay for the game after all, I might as well see everything that it has to offer. When done right, there's a massive potential for passionate devs to create a beautiful world with so much unique content and interesting stories to tell. This genre is responsible for some of the most universally recognized best games of all time, like The Witcher 3, Elden Ring, Red Dead Redemption 2, and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. When these games became successful, they took over the world by storm, and for good reason too. These titles were so good that they became instant classics in the Hall of Fame and still hold up to this day. However, with that success brought in a wave of trend-chasing publishers who also want in on a little piece of that action. And with that popularity brought in more and more and more open world games. I might love this genre, but it's getting to a point where it's just too much now. It seems like everyone and their grandmother is trying to get in on this trend because they think that it's a ticket to a free money printer. They think that if you just put an open world into your game, then people will automatically come through in boatloads like the people of Bikini Bottom for the Pretty Patties. But it's not that simple. You can't just churn out open world games where it has no business being in and expect it to be good. Publishers nowadays keep demanding for these kind of games to be made, but what they don't understand is that it takes so much work and dedication for them to actually do well. I'm sick of what modern day open world games have become, and every publisher's insistence on churning them out like slop has made my enjoyment of this genre wane heavily. I'm honestly just kinda tired of them at this point. Open world games used to be about creating a space where the players can explore the developer's vision to the fullest extent. It was about immersing yourself into that setting to fully experience what it was like to live in that world. This genre isn't just about having a bigger sandbox for the developers to put memes and Easter eggs in. It's a vehicle for the writers to tell unique and interesting stories through the environment and characters that inhabit it. To a regular layman, this might sound easy, just make a big map and put a bunch of shiny things in it. These stupid gamers have the attention span of monkeys anyway. But what they don't know is that most of them bite off more than they can chew. It's actually not as easy as they thought it would be because there's so much work that needs to be done in order to make these types of games in general. And because of their inexperience, many of these open world games now essentially play like linear titles just with longer travel times from point A to B, and with maybe some mundane mandatory chore in between. I feel like the art of crafting an adventure that's worth remembering the whole way through is lost in today's day and age. So much to the point where it feels like every open world game that comes out now is just there because the publisher wanted it to happen, not because the devs had a vision for it. Which begs the question though, what makes a good open world game then? Well, that's a pretty broad question. If you ask 10 different people, you probably get 10 different answers. However, I think there are some core principles that good games within this genre generally adhere to. First is that it needs a large and freely explorable environment for most of the game, obviously. It's not an open world game if it's not open. Not to be confused with games that have large maps though, like in Baldur's Gate 3 or Final Fantasy 16, where they do have multiple large open areas that you can explore, but the encounters you experience are much more curated and intentional. You can't just go to any area you want right from the get-go. There's a certain pace that the developers want you to stick to because they have a certain vision of how they want the game to play out. Whereas in true open world fashion, you can mostly go wherever you want right from the beginning, all uninhibited due to them being non-linear. For example, like how in Skyrim, right after the prologue, you can pretty much travel as far as you wish to and take on any quest that you encounter along the way. Your hand is never held, and you're never really funneled into a specific playstyle, or where you should go or how you should progress. The player has complete and total agency of every action they take. Yes, even including summoning Thomas the Tank Engine on a literal village of peasants and farmers.
Shoot those trains out of the sky! Oh god, a surprise werewolf attack! I should have expected this. There's only one way to defeat werewolves. Get in there, bear! Fight them!
The second thing that open world games usually have is a reward incentive for going off the beaten path. Sometimes they might come with a side quest or a treasure hunt, but usually they have some sort of in-game progression structure that gives the player something tangible for making the effort of going out of their way to find the side content. Whether it be money or a really cool legendary sword or some awesome armor, there's always a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that you can always look forward to. Like how in the Legend of Zelda games, when you complete an optional side area, you're always rewarded with something useful to aid you in the rest of your adventure. Usually games with great open worlds also include an intricate and memorable side quest that goes along with their optional content. The reward you get for doing them is supposed to be the bare minimum for these types of games. A great open world is where the developers go above and beyond to make this content just as interesting as the main story. For example, The Witcher 3 was well renowned back then for how engaging their side quests were, because not only did many of them offer pretty decent rewards, but they also had a well-written plotline that fleshed out this universe and added a lot more depth to the world around it. Yes, including the one where you literally have to find the testicles of a statue. What? It's for world building.
Ha! Gay!
And not only that, but many great open worlds often have a healthy amount of unique content to keep you engaged for the entire playthrough. These titles are meant to be played for multiple dozens of hours, and it's genuinely a challenge to keep the players entertained for every single hour that they're playing. So the games that are able to provide enough fun the whole way through set themselves a cut above the rest of the genre. The third thing that great open world games have are interesting looking locations and or landmarks. The hallmark of a truly great open world game is one that just has a beautiful world that you want to explore more of. I know this is incredibly vague because beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and one game could look amazing to one person, while another person might think it looks mediocre. I understand that, different strokes for different folks. However, it might say something about the game if everyone is saying that the world looks great, like Red Dead Redemption 2's, where I think everybody universally agrees that the world looks amazing. And they don't really mean by the graphical fidelity, which is still really high quality even by today's standards. They more than likely mean that the map was filled with many unique and memorable locations to explore. A good open world game is one that gives the player the curiosity to go off the beaten path, or even just entices them to stop along their journey and smell the flowers, or get married to a big titty goth Argonian girl. This point may seem pretty obvious to anybody, just make an open world and put a bunch of stuff in it, but you'd actually be surprised at how many times publishers mess this one point up, especially recently within the past few years. Now that open world games have become such a mainstream genre that every AAA publisher is trying to get their hands on it, there have been many more that have been coming out. Which sounds like it would be cool for an open world fan such as myself, but the problem is that there have been way too many not so great open world games that have been releasing lately to the point where I'm just tired of them now. This genre used to be about passionate and creative developers who had a vision of a virtual world that they wanted other players to experience. It wasn't just about having a huge empty sandbox for them to play in, but it was also a way for the devs to craft memorable stories told through this interactive medium. It allowed creative artists to go crazy filling the world with designs of their wildest imaginations. Okay, maybe some things should be kept to ourselves. Anyways, that's what it used to be about, but now it's just used as a marketing tool to trick casual players into thinking that they're getting hundreds of hours of content, when in reality, they're getting the same 5 objectives copy and pasted over and over again. Now, I'm not saying that good open world games don't have this problem as well, but the reason why nobody complains about them is because there's enough variation within the content to make it feel refreshing the whole way through. Bad open world games, however, will spam the same activities over and over again ad nauseum. One of the worst offenders of this is, of course, Ubisoft, who are infamously known for doing this in many of their titles. But for the sake of time, I'll just name one of their most egregious transgressions, like in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where the game wasn't necessarily the worst one out of the entire series, and there was some fun to be had exploring the land of 9th century England for a couple dozen or so hours. However, it massively overstays its welcome because the game forced you to complete every single region of the map before you were allowed to reach the ending, which meant that you had to complete the same repetitive tasks over and over again, with very little variety to mix it up for 20 hours straight, turning what should have been a nice 35 to 40 hour game to a 60 hour one due to Ubisoft wanting to artificially pad out the playtime by forcing you to do filler content. At that point, this should be considered cruel and unusual punishment, because only masochists would willingly put themselves through all of this.
No. Wait. Wait.
And I could go on and on about Ubisoft games all day, but I think you guys get the point. Another example of bad open world design is with the recently released game Mind's Eye, because it's probably one of the best examples of how not to make a game in general. There are a million things wrong with this title, and one of them is how there's absolutely nothing to do in the open world. Yes, this was supposed to be the GTA clone, except without any of the GTA aspects that the franchise was built around. Mind's Eye essentially plays exactly like one of those linear story-based titles from 2006 that you would find in the bargain bin at Walmart, except with longer travel times in between mission objectives. It's actually a mystery why they decided to make Mind's Eye an open world game, because you can't really do much in it. During the story mode, you're not allowed to stray away from the predetermined objective path or else you'll fail the mission. You're not allowed to take any car that you see on the street for some reason, like it just straight up doesn't let you go into any other car that isn't yours. And unlike in Ubisoft games where there's too many activities on the map, this game hardly has any at all. It's like the higher ups said that they wanted an open world game to a team of people who have never made one before. But the thing is that they actually have, because Build a Rocket Boy supposedly had ex-Rockstar devs on their team, so they actually did know how to make one. I guess that's why they're ex-Rockstar devs in the first place. No one even reacts when you go on a mass killing rampage, the civilians don't run away in fear, the police don't hunt you down, there isn't even a star system in this game. So the NPCs are literally programmed to do nothing, which is really sad because even games 15 years ago had NPCs that reacted more than this. There's a reason why Mind's Eye is regarded as one of the worst titles to release this year. It was so bad that even IGN couldn't give it their trademark IGN 7 out of 10, and that's saying something. Another pretty bad open world game that was released within the past couple of years was Forspoken, or more like Forgotten.
Did I just do that?
Well, definitely with my assistance.
I did not just do that.
We did.
I just moved shit with my mind.
Perhaps our connection has somehow awoken some abilities.
I just moved shit with my mind.
I just keep hearing I.
I just moved shit with my freaking mind!
Anyways, this game came out in 2023 and was developed by the same dev studio that made Final Fantasy 15 themselves. The problem was that the game was just not really good, like at all. And because it did so poorly commercially, it completely shut the entire studio down. Now, I've already gone over why this game was so mediocre when it came out. You could check out the video for yourself in the description below. What I want to talk about is how one of the reasons why the game failed was due to the open world looking incredibly dull and lifeless. There was nothing about Forspoken's setting that made me want to actually go out and traverse this world. Everything just looked like the samey, empty, desolate wasteland. Sure, there is like a lore reason for why there's no life to be found anywhere, but it still doesn't make it better. Graphically, Forspoken looked absolutely beautiful due to the luminous engine that it was using, and I commend the artists for trying their best with this title. Unfortunately though, the world was completely dead, and it didn't feel like anything on the map was interesting enough to seek out. And this is a problem with many dev studios who try to get their hands in on the open world craze lately. They seem to always forget that they have to actually make it fun to explore by putting fun looking things in it. A lot of the reason comes down to time constraints, I know that. However, it still doesn't change how people feel about having checklist activities or chores because they just make people less likely to try out any of the extra content. Whenever I take a side quest and it says 1 out of 237 on my screen, then I'm just not even gonna bother with it anymore. That is the fastest way to make me lose interest in the game. Even though I do think collectibles and stuff like that are fine for the most part, sometimes these games overdo it and add way too many. It's the quantity over quality mindset that really brings down the enjoyment of one of my most favorite genres within the gaming medium. Maybe it's because I've become jaded from playing so many mediocre open world titles, but as I get older, I realize that my time is limited. I'm not really interested in spending the next 50 hours running around an empty sandbox. I value my time more now, and whenever I see a new game getting advertised as open world, I reflexively roll my eyes. There have been way too many of these games entering the market, and honestly, I'm just fatigued from it all. But that's just me. What do you think? Do you also have open world fatigue? Let me know down below and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.